Students, welcome to my class. This is chapter 1, Introduction, what, where, how and when. In this chapter, we can study about our past, where did people live, like that. So, in order to know the past, we examine the materials remain or the literary sources, inscriptions, like that. Okay, let's start. What can we know about the past? There are several things we can find out. What people ate, kinds of clothes they wore, houses in which they lived. We can know about their food, clothes, the houses they were used, like that. And also the games children played, the stories, the songs. We can know all about it. Where did people live? Okay, can you find the river Narmada on map 1? Let me show you. Here, this is the Narmada river. Next to the Vindhya range, there is Narmada river. Okay. People have lived along the banks of this river for several 100,000 years. They were skilled gatherers. That means they gathered their food. They knew the vast wealth of plants on the surrounding forest, collected roots, fruits, and other forest produce for their food. They also hunted animals. Okay, that is about the Narmada river and the place adjacent to that. Now, find the Suleiman and Kirtar hills to the northwest. So, where is the northwest? Here. This is the northwest region, and here you can find the Kirtar and Suleiman. And some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley. For in this region, there is wheat and barley. They are cultivated in 8,000 years ago. People also began rearing animals like sheep, goat, cattle, and lived in villages. Okay, now let's move to the northeast region. That is the Garo Hills in the northeast. So northeast is here. See, that is the Garo Hills. And also, where is the central India? We need to find the Vindhyas. We already know that here the Vindhyas in the central region, which is adjacent to the Narmada river. Okay. So in this region, the agriculture developed, where the Vindhyas and the Garo hills. Here the agriculture developed in the places where rice was first grown are north of Vindhyas. Can you trace the river Indus and its tributaries? We can look at the map. Where is the river Indus? Yes, this is the river Indus, and its tributaries are Satluj, Ravi, Chenab, Beas, Jhelum, and Kabul river. About 4,700 years ago, some of the earliest cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. And here, about 4,700 years ago, cities are flourished in the banks of this Indus river. We know, here is the Ganga. Here, the cities are developed about 2,500 years ago. Say, 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the bank of Ganga and its tributaries. So locate Ganga. Yeah, this is the Ganga river and Sun river. It is one of its right bank tributaries of the Ganga. In ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of Ganga was known as Magadha. It is the one kingdom ruled on that. It is now lying in the state of Bihar. It is a set up a large kingdom, that is Magadha. It is a large kingdom. We know that people traveled from one part of the subcontinent to another, like the hills, the high mountains. Like we know that we have Himalaya, deserts, river. So why did people move? Yeah, they moved because in search of livelihood, to escape from natural disasters like flood or drought. Or sometimes they marched in armies, conquering other lands. And also the merchants, they traveled with the caravans to sell things. So they transport valuable goods from place to place. So the trade flourished. So the peoples moved from one place to another. One point is to escape from natural disasters like flood or drought. And another point is in search of livelihood. Also for trade. And also we know that the religious teachers, they walked from village to villages and advising on the way and studying and offer instructions like that. And by moving throughout the country or from one place to place, there is a sharing of ideas between people. People began to share ideas with each other. Can you say, why do people travel nowadays? We travel a lot, right? For job, for studying, and for visiting places like that. We know that the hills, mountains, and seas form the natural frontiers of the subcontinent. It is difficult to cross these frontiers. You know that here we have the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and when come to the north, we can see the Himalayas. So it is very difficult to cross that. But yeah, there are some mountain passes there. One thing is Bolan Pass. It is situated in here. There is Bolan Pass. So through these passes, the people can move from other continent to our continent, our subcontinent. Okay, not continent, our subcontinent. So this movement of people enriched our cultural tradition. So we came to know about other traditions and sharing our traditions like that. So it's new ways of carving stone. We get new ideas, composing music, cultural development, and even cooking food. Let's study about name of land. Two of the words we often use for our country are India and Bharat. Where did these names come from? For India, the word India comes from the Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit. The name India came from the Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit. The Iranians and Greeks, they came through the northwest. I told you there are several passes on the northwest frontier. So they came through that. The Iranians and Greeks about 2500 years ago. And they were familiar with the Indus River, because we know that this is the Indus River and this is the northwest frontier. So they know about the Indus River. And can you now guess from where this Bharat name came? The name Bharat was used for a group of people who lived in the northwest. They are mentioned in the Rig Veda. So the name Bharat was used for a group of people who lived in the northwest. So we studied about the names of land, how the India name came, how the Bharat name came. We know about it. Now let's find out about our past. About the past. How can we know about our past? For that, we can use materials remains, inscriptions, literary sources, like that. So one is to search for and read books that were written long ago. And one example is manuscripts. They were written by hand, and that is why they know that manuscript. Manu is a Latin word meaning hand. So they know manuscripts. They are written by hand, and it is written long ago. So from these reading these books, we can get an idea about our past. Where did they written? Is there any paper in that day? No. They are written on the palm leaf or specifically prepared bark of the tree known as birch. So where did they written? On the palm leaf and bark of the tree known as the birch, which is grown in the Himalayas. This is an example of a manuscripts. Okay, how we know about all these manuscripts? Yes, they are preserved. Many of were destroyed, maybe eaten away by some insects, like that. But some of them preserved in temples and monasteries. So by reading these books, we can know about our past and what kind of things we can learn from this. We can know about the religious belief, their religious belief and practices, the lives of kings, medicine and science. So by reading or by referring these books, we can know about the subject, how they live, what are the beliefs and practices of them, how the king lives, what are the medicines and science at that times. We get information about all this. And do you know what language it is written? Yes, it is written on Sanskrit and others were in Prakriti. It is the common language by ordinary people used. Prakriti is the language used by ordinary people. And there is a Tamil also. We can also study inscriptions. What is inscription? Do you know what is inscription is? Yes, inscription, they are written on relatively hard surface. Writing on relatively hard surface. These are we call it as inscriptions. We know about the palm leaf, the manuscript that is written, and there are some inscriptions also. These are written on the relatively hard surface, and such as stone or metals. So just because they are written on the hard surface, the chances of survival rate is more on for inscriptions. and we can find out why they use inscription or what are the uses of inscriptions. The inscriptions most usually kings got their orders inscribed so that people could see, read and obey them. So it is used for royal orders to communicate king's message to the people or to send the royal orders to the people. And there are other kind of inscription as well, where men and women recorded what they did. For example, kings often kept records victories in battles. They keep records of the victories in battles. So apart from the royal orders, what they achieved, they also inscribed on it. Can you think the advantage of writing on a hard surface? Yes, they can survey more. We can now let's find out what is archaeology or who are archaeologists, what they are doing. We may hear about the name the archaeologist. What they did is they study the remains of buildings made of stone and brick, paintings and sculptures. So that is, they explore things. They are exploring these things. They excavate, dig under the surface of earth, and they may find tools, weapons, pots, pans, ornaments and coin. These are the things or objects that are used by the ancient people. So by archaeological survey, we can learn about the tools they used, the object they used, what they made of. Some of these objects that we found be made of stone, bones, baked clay and metal. So I ask you a question that can you think of the advantage of the writing on a hard surface? Yeah, the object that are made on hard, imperishable substance usually survive for a long time. What is the advantage? They survive for long time. Coming to the next part, the archaeologists also look for bones of animals, birds and fish. Why they do that? From examining these things, we can know that whether the animals are domesticated or find out what people ate in the past. Plants remains survive far more rarely, maybe by burned seeds. It's rarely survive. If seeds of grain or piece of wood have been burnt, they survive in charred form. So its survival rate is rare, but we can find out the bones of animals like that. Historians, that is the scholars who study the past. So who is historians? The scholars who study the past often use word source to refer the information found from manuscripts, inscriptions and archaeology. So far we studied about manuscripts, inscriptions, etc., right? And archaeology. So these sources are used by the historian to find out our past. They study these sources. So maybe we can call them as like a detective because they're finding out what the past is, what the past was. So the historians and archaeologists are like a detectives. Is there one past or many? Look at the title of this book, Our Past. The word past is plural. Why is used like? Just because the past was different for different group of people. It is not same for everyone. It was different for different group of people. To understand that, we can show an example. That is, the lives of herders, farmers were different from those of kings and queens. The lives of merchants were different from those of craftsperson. For different peoples, the way they live, it's all different. So we can say the past was different for different group of people. By looking to our surrounding, we can say that it is even true even today, that people followed different practices and customs in different part of the country. It's not same for everyone. For example, the Andaman Island. They earn food by fishing. They are most known doing by fishing. They get their food by fishing, hunting, and collecting forest produce. But is the people living in cities doing that? No. People living in the cities depend on others for supplies of food. Difference such as these existed in the past as well. So, like today, there are differences in the past also. We studied that there are inscriptions which tell about the victories of the battle, like that. So, the kings and the battles they fought, because we know about that because they kept records of their victories. They kept the records. That is why we used to know about it. The ordinary people, other hunters, fishing, farmers, etc., they did not keep the record of what they did or what they are doing. The ordinary people, they did not keep the record. So the archaeology helped us to find out what about their lives. So the use of archaeology, or what archaeology help us to find out what about their lives, the ordinary people's lives, because there are not so much records available to study about them. So in the last portion, we can study about what do dates mean. We usually hear that 2000 BC, 2000, like that. So what about the 2000 and something? So probably in this year it is 2023, right? What does this 2023 means? It means that 2023 years after the birth of Christ. 2023 means the years after the birth of Christ. For example, 2000 means the years after the birth of Christ. 2000 years after the birth of Christ. For 2023, it is 2023 years after the birth of Christ. Because these years are counted from the date generally assigned to the birth of Jesus Christ. So, the founder of Christianity. So, these years are counted from the date generally assigned to the birth of Jesus Christ. All the days before, there are days that are before the birth of Jesus Christ. So, that are counted backwards and usually have the letter BC, before Christ. So, if 100 BC means 100 years before the Christ, or 1000 BC means 1000 years before the Christ. So in the last, it's a recall of what we studied so far. So we can see what the following: the Narmada Valley. What is especially Narmada Valley? We study about the hunting and gathering. The people hunted there, right? So, what is Magadha? It is the first big kingdom, right? Magadha, it is the first big kingdom. Next one, Garo Hills. It is the early agriculture. The early agriculture was started in Garo Hills. Okay. Indus and its tributaries. We know that is the first cities 4,700 years ago. Right? And the Ganga Valley, the city is about 2,500 years ago.